There it goes. We're swinging open the gateway to your weekend. Ready, get set. Anyway, first, a show on it. Make your statement and face your fears as Michael Feir reviews award-winning podcast out there called the Magnus Archives. We'll get to that conversation very shortly. Plus on the program, AMI's Parasport Nation crew has been busy with back-to-back weekends of sports coverage. We love it, us sports fans. And host Alex Smyth will join us with the lowdown on what they're up to last weekend and this one. Whew, being too busy is one of my fears.
This is Kelly and Company.
Kelly MacDonald here, driving you through your Friday and welcoming you to the program as we swing open, as we do on the Fridays, the gateway to your weekend. Nazreen Abdel-Majid also joining me. Niz, welcome back for an interesting show, interesting conversation. I know you're excited for our first one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Happy
have
Friday.
you always been a podcast person, or would you say you're more YouTube?
I've always been a YouTube person, but it's just because I was so used to it, watching everything on YouTube. Yeah, exactly. But I do browse on podcast platforms and it's really interesting. But YouTube is what I've always been used to browsing on, so I have more knowledge. Yeah. How about you?
It's interesting because I try to figure out. I originally was a podcast person, played on YouTube for old TV shows and things like that, and Discovery that way, and clips of stuff, shows. Let's remember that scene and whatever, because it's funny how on YouTube you learn, we all have shows that we remember certain scenes from. And out there on YouTube, there's always going to be someone else who has the same, this is my favorite fight scene, this was my favorite funny scene, and they're available. You find these if you don't find a whole show or a whole series laying around out there before YouTube finds it. There's a lot there to play around with, and it's so funny how there's so many like-minded people. So when I discovered that really after podcasts, which I probably was late to the party on podcasts, I thought that was just great. Now the other area that I don't compare, of course, is things like X, TikTok, where you might find some videos, YouTube and TikTok being
even
places
old
where
clips of TV shows that you were talking about. I always find like clips of Friends
on TikTok.
yeah,
so,
on TikTok.
Has that replaced? Because we talk a lot about our place on TikTok, videos we put up. Would you say you would spend more time there now on there than YouTube?
I would, but I do watch a lot of YouTube. So I think it really depends on what I'm feeling and what types of things I'm watching. So
is it the
if
length?
it's more of, I like watching video
span?
podcasts on YouTube.
Oh, interesting.
But I'll watch, funny videos on TikTok, and then on podcast platforms, it's more of like real topics, real context. So it's it really depends on the flavor I'm feeling that day.
Okay. I like that people enjoy watching podcast videos on YouTube like us, because you can find our Kelly and Company YouTube page. I like that. Mike Feir, which one do you prefer as he joins us for his segment? But a couple of things we'll chat about first, including this. Where do you spend most time? You're not really a social media person, or are you?
I am. I like Mastodon. That's my platform of choice for social conversation. Now for video, I do watch a lot of YouTube. I find there's all sorts of creepypasta stories and horror things up there, and all sorts of mostly audio. I think there are visuals to go along with it, but it's really like stories being recorded and read out and things. So there's a lot of that on YouTube, but I'm a huge podcast person too. Like I'm always on my Castro app digging into the podcasts.
Well, we'll get into that in a bit, but I'm curious, on YouTube, the world's different when it comes to audio description, of course, but you seem to spend the time out there, and would you say whatever you're paying attention to, you get as much as you need to follow along?
Absolutely. Like a lot of these videos on like how-tos or reviews of products, there's so much useful stuff, and mainly there's enough sound content that you don't really need the visuals most of the time. Every once in a while I feel like I've missed out on some element, but it's very rare that I'm
It's so funny that you brought it's so funny that you brought that up, because every time I get a new item to the house, I don't look at the manual that they provide. I have to go on YouTube and see people put it together, because
that's what I do with demos.
I'm a visual learner.
I go because I find demos are best that way for me to learn what I'm doing. If I was to buy something, that's what I would do. Speaking of buying things, thinking of things that are in the house, let's talk about robot vacuum cleaners. They're too idle and can be reprogrammed to water plants. Researchers out there say. Anthony Cuthbert says this in his item. This is from April 30th, actually. The Independent published this. A team of computer scientists from the University of Bath reprogrammed a Roomba to perform 4 new tasks in an effort to maximize its utility during idle hours. I mean, often these things sit, and this is a really interesting point. New functions include charging phones, providing live feeds for pets, projecting displays on the walls, and deterring disturbances. Now, the researchers identified more than 100 tasks that a robot vacuum cleaner could be adjusted to do, with some relatively simple modifications, such as playing with cats with a fitted laser pen, or carrying groceries from the car to the house. Mobile domestic robots, like robot vacuum cleaners and lawnmowers, are perceived as limited at this time. Maybe it's so we'll buy more things, or buy one thing to do one thing, buy another to do that, to keep the cat entertained, when maybe it could be used. One device could do several. Anyway, single task devices are what they're deemed as, but there's a strong argument that they are underused for these kinds of multiple tasks that are available. For most of the day, they sit idle, said Yakashaki, one of the scientists on this. He's a PhD student, in the Department of Computer Science at the University of Bath, who came up with the modifications. Robot vacuum cleaners only clean for about 1 hour and 47 minutes each day on average, leaving a huge amount of untapped potential. Other applications proposed by the researchers, guys, include searching for lost items, receiving and delivering packages, and playing a card game. I'm curious your feelings on this, guys. Just give me one more moment. We'll finish this up. Similar functionalities could be added to other domestic robots, such as robotic lawnmowers. A robot vacuum cleaner, for instance, could use its idle time to monitor home security, water the plants, or assist an older person to stand from a sitting position. These tasks tap into the robot's advanced sensors as well as its mobility. Now, I'm going to go to you first, Nazreen. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I can tell you for a fact, if I had this, I wouldn't need a reason to get up. That's for sure. I would not need a reason to get off my couch, and that's unsafe for me.
Wow.
Yeah. Can you blame me? Did you listen to what you just said? All of the whole list? There's nothing left. What else is there to do?
It's interesting because certain things like carton groceries in from out, I'm not sure I'm buying into some of that. Definitely a toy for the cat to like project on a wall. When I first read that, I'm like, what the heck are you projecting on the wall? And then when you think about a cat laser and things like that, and this is only, we're only talking 8 out of the 100 things that they figure they could do. Mike, what do you hear in there that for you works, or does it?
Well, okay. I can see that being useful. If it now I'm wondering about that average time, whether that's based on like an apartment or a house. But you could do, now the University of Bath, my instant thought of they're fooling around with it spraying water. There could be a problem there.
That's true. That's true.
But that could be, I could sort of see that because it has the camera, it has the sensors, so you could see, where as long as it could identify, you'd have to really make sure it could identify objects well, and then use it to apply it, whatever appendages you stick to it, like a water gun or whatever. You want that used carefully around your domicile, I think.
Imagine if there's a glitch and then just you have a water. A flood.
Right? Yeah.
A flood.
Yeah. Destroyed plants and a vacuum.
I was going to say a sprinkler.
Mess, right?
A sprinkler in the house. Yeah, that's the word.
Well, and I know we're talking about it as it looks now, making the adjustments so there's only so much water, even the mopping ones that are out there doing, it will hold, and they're making whatever it takes to make sure that's not an issue. But a lot of these little things, plugging your phone into it, for example, carting things around, pulling someone to a standing position, not quite sure how that looks or works, but we know we're probably months from the strength in the vacuum of being able to do some of these things like that. I do see the waste. It definitely, once it's done and sitting there, it lives on charge, which probably is not the greatest either for its battery. But if you're using it enough, and I agree, Michael, probably that is for an apartment or the average use somebody does. Maybe people don't want to do the whole house every day for whatever reasons, but the usage time, really interesting. I'm anxious to see where this goes.
We're kind of fine with.
Yeah, go ahead.
Fine with cars. I'm just thinking, cars, people own these cars and they're only driving for like a minute fraction of the day.
Yeah.
And we're fine with that, right?
Yeah.
And all the space that they take up and all the infrastructure.
And all the money people spend on them to get them, to service them. Yep. And I know it's different because a car goes through sitting out in the heat, in the cold, the banging in the roads, the whatever abuse people put them through. So you have something that is a different category. But boy, there is a lot of idle time for something. You pay some people a ridiculous amount of money for these robot vacuum cleaners still, if you're a fan of certain ones. So Niz, did you have a closing thought?
Yeah, what I find it to be a drag is carrying groceries. So when you mentioned that, I got excited for some reason. I can't picture it. And playing cards is so weird, but hell yeah. Wow. Like but
people are playing games all the time now with their smart speakers and so on, talking to them, saying thank you and I can beat you. Come on, talking.
Isn't that wild though? Like you're just talking to a speaker. I'm just trying to picture it, but yeah. Yeah, it is different.
Reminds me of old TV shows, science fiction. Buck Rogers, Dr. Theopolis, Mike. Folks, email us at kellyco@ami.ca and give us a call at 1-866-509-4545.
So somewhere in London, England, there's an institute charged with investigating any incidents which might be supernatural. This week, Michael Feir will tell us about the Magnus Archives. So Michael, what pulled you into the Magnus Archives? Was it love at first listen or did it sneak up on you?
Well, I found out about this because a top game designer was basically enamored with this podcast and was making a role-playing game, funding it on Kickstarter based on this. And I thought, that tells me a couple of things right away. It tells me there's world building, tells me there's depth to this. And, it's a horror podcast about supernatural stories. And immediately I just thought, okay, if top game designer sees enough potential to make a role-playing game out of this, it's worth a dig into. So that was really what propelled me into it. And then the more I listened, the more I couldn't stop.
That's so interesting when you see somebody who says, hey, I could make a game out of this, or hey, it's sort of like the old days when someone comes and says, I'd like to write a screenplay for this. Would you be interested? So fantastic for this person and also for the podcast. What's the premise of it?
So basically, an agency was started in 1818 in Britain to basically document the supernatural, to start really archiving statements of people who think they've encountered the supernatural and really investigate these statements to the full extent possible. So that's the mission, right, is to really start looking at this systematically and trying to figure out, okay, are these things real? Is any of it real? And they've been at it for 200 years. So now we get to the modern day, and this archivist comes in, Jonathan Sims, the new head archivist, and he's faced with this massive disorganized mess. The previous archivist has died mysteriously, died in the line of duty, and no one's really clarified what happened. So he's sat with that, and he's also now stuck with this disorganized mess that he's grumbling as he tries to figure it out and start recording these statements into audio. And he has to use cassettes because the more digital you get, the more it seems that something is trying to prevent information from being saved. So something's going on there. There's already, at this point, they have enough proof that there are some inexplicable supernatural things that have withstood a lot of scrutiny. and now they're documenting these stories, trying to organize this archive, and then follow up on what they find. And they have these investigators that go out and will try to fill in the missing gaps in the archive, in the statement.
Are the episodes long?
They're basically anywhere from, one of them was like a brief 13 minutes, but most of them are like half an hour, give or take. So 30 minutes plus or minus.
See, I have a short attention span, so I feel like that's fair. That's good. I feel like that's a good amount of time.
Yeah, and some of them are two-parters. Some of the statements some stories take up 2 episodes. So I've seen that a couple of times.
Mike, talk about some of the stories, the things that the wide ranging. You said that, and I'm assuming that we get all sorts. That there's no rhyme or reason to the next episode, like that might necessarily follow unless it's a 2-parter. But so widely ranging, the kind of thing you might find you would never know. Hey, and there's not necessarily that pattern other than where these stories come from.
Yeah, because it starts out, I'm only halfway. I've listened to like 20 episodes of this so far, and there's 40 in total. So I've got a long way to go. But for the first 10 or 12, it's very scattershot, right? Because you've got statements from 1880, you've got one from 1915. They have one where a garbage collector finds this, bag full of 100 severed heads of dolls. And another one right in that same house a little while later, there's a bag with like 10,000 human teeth that are kind of identical, but obviously human. So something's really creepy going on at that house, right?
Wow.
You've got a book that is basically somehow wielding dark powers, and people who read it are sort of influenced either to become really creepy or something else happens. They don't tend to live very long after reading the book. So something is going on there. A lot of very creepy. There was a sister and brother who went in caving, and he used to be just expert caving, knew what they were doing, experienced people, but for some reason that cave swallows a person, and the survivor has to deal with that. There's so much. It's very varied. But eventually, as you listen to more of these stories, what happens is you start to get a sense that there's something out there. There's something that knows about the agency and is starting to look back at them, and do take steps. So this is the tension is ramping up. It's a neat, well done kind of anthology of these stories that are connected by this overarching story of this archivist.
So who do you think would enjoy this podcast? Is it just for horror fans?
I would say anyone into sort of creepy tales. You have to sort of be into horror. These are mysterious, and there's a whole, okay, how can this work? What would they find? What would you conclude after hearing this stuff? Like, how provable would you believe or disbelieve these statements, right? And then there's, so people into that would like it. Now, it is adult. I would say categorically, this is for adults, this material, maybe older teens, but not young kids. You'd get a kid nightmares with some of this stuff. Right?
I'm sure. Given adult
these
nightmares.
Ideas are creepy.
Yeah, Mike, the interviews that you hear the bits from, I always love snapshots in times. I think that's why I'm a huge fan of the old radio shows. They'll talk about something, and, oh, really? And run off to go and research. What does that mean? What's the automat? What is this? So in these, you talked about the garbage collector, you talked about the caving and things that we may know about, but listening to the audio from the cassettes, the interviews and stuff like that, anything that you noticed, whether it's the interview technique, whether it's sound quality, anything particular that gives you that feel of the moment in time, this is something that happened, whether it's description of things, the way they spoke, of different things that have really made you feel that you get a picture of that time, of those moments.
Yeah, like they have, sometimes they have snapshots of sound, like in that caving one, you heard a bit of recording that happened inside the cave, and there you get more of that sound quality. So they do have intrusions sometimes, and there's also kind of background sound that can kind of creep in that doesn't quite sound like you'd think a cassette recording would, right? So there are little tricks they play like that, and then there are occasional interruptions of events that happened as they're doing the statements, right? So there are some additional sounds, but the sound use is very kind of low key, right? It's there, but it's not. It doesn't overwhelm. It's not the center is the story, right?
But it's still effective.
Statements.
Yeah,
I'm sure. Yeah, it makes a difference to the storytelling.
And how about the explanations, Mike? Like, is there background that we're given because we're not in that 90, say, stories from that era? Are the podcast creators really good at giving you that background so you can depict this is 1890 so and so, wherever it is?
Well, it's kind of they kind of do stories where the you don't need tons of background to sort of judge. Like the one from 1880 was a guy in a pub that went home after getting more drunk than he's kind of willing to admit, and seeming to encounter this strange being that kind of asked for a cigarette, but was kind of making this strange gesture. And it just seemed creepy. Like for some reason, this guy was really creeped out by what turned out to be some sort of monster, because other people who gave cigarettes have gone missing, and this guy has escaped that, but could never quite look at things the same way again. So you get this creepy kind of thing, and they'll go back and they'll investigate and they say, okay, what's going on? And they'll say, well, these streets at this time, these are the conditions, and this is kind of where all the people smokers who went missing, right? Is this right? So you'll kind of get at the end of these stories, they'll get these investigation kind of that's gone on that adds background to these stories sometimes as well. So I've never felt lost. I've never felt like, oh, what the heck is that, or what happened? Like nothing kind of is left sort of to jar you like that. It's that is pretty well covered.
That's what makes you keep coming back for more, and that's what made you stick with the podcast through so many episodes. Absolutely. Am I right? Yes, I binged like 20 episodes over a weekend. I just couldn't stop listening, and it just it took being damn close to finishing my book to actually pull me away and get me back to work, because it was just, they're so riveting, and they're short. Like they're short enough that you don't feel trapped in this long thing, right? It's a short kind of story, and then you go on to the next one, and it could be something completely different. Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Michael. No, pleasure. It's a wonderful show. People should check it out. Very well done. Yeah. It gave me the chills just talking about it, but love it. You can enjoy the Magnus Archives at no cost. Find it and other podcasts by visiting rustyquill.com. Michael Feir appears regularly on Kelly and Company to discuss entertainment. I get into these situations with Mike, brings these things. And again, I've done this with Michael Babcock. We'll talk about something. Oh, geez, I wouldn't mind picking that up or downloading that. And then I just don't get to it. Like, I mean, if I took a week and went through old shows, scripts, and said, oh, yeah. I mean, that's enough to set me on so many search and find things. It's unbelievable. So really nice. You need to write them down. Oh, I do that too. That's what you gotta do. I forget. Yeah. Then I forget that I wrote it down somewhere. Like, I know there's something I wanted. Like, I have to. Otherwise, you just get so much trouble because there's so much information, so many trails everybody can put you on to something useful. Hey, also, folks, if you want to find out more about our content, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Kelly and Co. AMI. Go ahead, check us out there. We'd really love to hear from you. Nisreen manages our accounts and would love to talk to you. On Parasport Nation, host Alex Smyth spotlights upcoming parasport events in Canada and abroad, pulls back the curtain on how parasports are played, and interviews parasport athletes, coaches, and trainers. Alex, welcome back to the show. And last weekend and this upcoming weekend, you guys have been incredibly busy with really cool parasport coverage. What's going on? And I know last weekend we'll start. You were in Montreal. What was going on there? Yeah, so it's been a whirlwind few weeks for me, Kelly, nice. Traveling all across this country, but I'm not complaining. So last weekend I was in Montreal for Défi Sportif Altergo. It is
the largest like multi-sport disability competition. It features grassroots competition, high school age like and level group competitions, all the way up to national parasport competitions. I was able to take in some of the high school various competitions from running, sprinting to soccer. And then I also had a chance to kind of take in the national wheelchair curling competition that took place during Defi Sportif as well. So there were so many great different moments and sports going on simultaneously. It was really impressive. I've never been to a sporting competition at this scale, at this level, that was entirely focused on parasport and disability. Usually you'll see them blended in with kind of the able-bodied sports or things like that. No, this was entirely dedicated to parasport, and it was fantastic.
I'll tell you the funniest story, guys. I covered the, blind hockey, years ago when AMI first started rolling out our TV crews. My videographer and I went to Montreal to cover blind hockey, and we had some downtime. So we started wandering around, only to discover this was this weekend. This was, I remember my videographer saying, "Hey man, there's a huge sports thing going on here. What's happening?" We had no idea. I don't know, Alex, how long they've run this, but we discovered, that's where I first saw wheelchair fencing. It was just such a surprise. Well, of course, then we were so eager, we started filming everything. So I don't know how long it's been around, but what an incredible event and a lot of fun. And for, I think, parasports, what an introduction for people who stumble like we did across it.
42 years, Kelly. I got you covered on how long they've been running Defi Sportif. And absolutely, because like just from the context of the high school kids, this was day 8 that we were covering there, the first day we were there. They had opening ceremonies, they had a parade, they had mascots, they had guys on stilts, they had rows of volunteers applauding as the students made their way into the stadium for the opening ceremony. So the feeling that those youth would have had coming into that stadium, and I had a chance to talk to them, that they were blown away. And I was impressed. It's like, this is day 8. The volunteers, the organizers have been doing this for 8 days, but they want to make sure the athletes that are there on the day get that same experience. And I said, I'm sure there's Paralympic athletes I know who would appreciate this level of enthusiasm and support and grandeur at some world championship events, because this was on par with some of those world championship events.
Love it. This weekend, what do you have going on out in Saskatoon? People can look for you there.
Yeah, so we are covering the Senior National Goalball Championships. So I'm going to be on the ground. I'm flying out on Saturday, going to be there on Sunday. We're going to have coverage of the gold medal games for the men's and women's. That's going to be, I'm going to be doing play-by-play. We're going to be having some few guests join throughout the coverage, and that's going to be on Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern time on AMI Audio. We'll have the back-to-back games for folks to tune in to and enjoy.
Oh, that's tremendous. Nazreen, you've seen goalball ever anywhere, even on YouTube?
Clips I have. Yeah. Okay. But that's it.
Clips don't do it justice. Clips do not do it justice. I will say,
I know.
even covering the provincial side of the speed of the sport blew me away. And that was a provincial level competition. I have no idea what to expect when I'm trying to do play-by-play on the national stage. It's going to be back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
And how comfortable are you with the sport now, Alex? Like, this is wonderful. Doing play-by-play and the guests you'll have, you're pretty comfortable?
I'm comfortable. I'm ready for it. I enjoy calling goalball. It's a ton of fun. It's a very simple game to cover, but it's one that I'm excited to see just how much faster it gets once you get to that national level.
That's going to be tremendous. We'll be listening, my friend. I think it would be wonderful. I keep saying AMI has to roll out a team for one of the tournaments down in Brantford, the Invitational that they do. They had a few weeks back. Alex, good luck, safe travels, and we're looking forward to the coverage, man.
Well, thank you very much, and we'll chat when I'm back.
You betcha. AMI's Parasport Nation is on right after Kelly and Company on Tuesdays and Fridays, so they're coming up next on AMI Audio. And available as a podcast and on YouTube, check out the women's and men's events, these gold medal games on AMI Audio or on AMI Plus this Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time from the Canadian Senior Goalball Championships in Saskatoon. Remember, too, to check out our podcast, give us a rating and review, visit our YouTube page, and on our next show, we take in a description-rich tour of one of the great Maya cities, which remains half buried in the jungle with audio describer JJ Hunt. The gateway's open, folks. Take care. Enjoy. Have a good weekend now. Get out of here, will ya?
Thanks for tuning in to Kelly and Company. Follow us on all social media, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more.